Hello and welcome to your weekly video forecast for the week beginning the 6th of October 2014. So are you sat down? Are you comfortable? Do you have your favorite hot beverage, cold beverage, whatever it is nearby? Okay, we need to sit and we need to talk a while. I'm not going to take a huge amount of your time, but I want you to settle in, make sure you're comfortable because it's a pretty powerful week. And it's a lot to discuss, and we should really discuss it all because I don't want to give you something that's just kind of halfway. That's me. I'm just all or nothing. So we're gonna go for it, and I'm gonna give you the all of the situation. You know, it's interesting because before I started recording this, I was thinking of the fact that I've got new glasses. Yay! I got some new glasses, and I'm in Aries, and so Aries is ruled by Mars, and we're heading towards this wonderful Grand Trine. We'll touch on that here in a moment. It's pretty powerful energy because it's also connected to a lunar eclipse. And one point of that triangle is actually Mars, and Mars is in a section of the sky that's called Jyeshta. And Jyeshta on one level is about being able to have a different perspective, to see things in a different manner. So I kind of giggled to myself inwardly, being in Aries, that I've got these new glasses and I can begin to see things differently. But in one area of all of our lives, there's really a need to see things in a completely different manner than you have seen them before. And as we're dealing with the Mercury retrograde period, let's start there because that's really part of the background and understanding all this. Mercury is retrograde until the end of the month. So we've got this lunar eclipse that happens on the 8th, which is Wednesday. And then 2 weeks later, I believe it's actually the 23rd that we have the solar eclipse. Yeah, it's the 23rd. We've got a solar eclipse, right? And we're entering an eclipse portal. And Mercury is going to be retrograde for that entire amount of time. So that means that this Mercury retrograde cycle is exceptionally important. And it's getting ready to head back into a section of the sky that's called Chitra. And we need to understand Chitra a little more deeply. Chitra is associated with one of the brightest stars in the sky, if not the brightest star in the sky, and that is Spica. And part of the energy that's related to Chitra is when things are out of balance with Chitra energy, things can appear one way. We're tempted by something. You might feel that something would be a good idea, right? But upon closer examination, we begin to find that it's not really right with us. Okay, there's a lot about appearances with Chitra. But the positive side of Chitra is that which is related to our ethics, knowing ourselves, knowing who we are, seeing ourselves more clearly. We're going to touch on this Jyeshta energy in a moment because that feeds into it, because Jyeshta is actually ruled over by Mercury. So that means that Mercury's retrograde period is really going to strengthen that angle of the triangle that's associated with Jyeshta. As a matter of fact, Revati, which is where Uranus and the moon will be at the time of this Grand Trine, also ruled by Mercury. Jupiter in Ashadha, also ruled by Mercury. So this Mercury retrograde period is exceptionally important to understand. What's in here, right? If you're going with what's up here and you're just trying to make something happen because you feel that it really needs to happen and it's got to happen quickly, you're likely going to find yourself in a space where you're feeling unhappy and something falls flat. Because the universe is asking you to take a look. Does it work right with what's in here? Now, interestingly enough, right, Chitra is ruled over by Mars. Mars is in Jyeshta. So there's a little bit of an exchange of energy going on there. You got to do what's right in your heart, and you're not going to feel satisfied. Whenever we deal with Mars, we're going to deal on a certain level with dissatisfaction, right? So something overall has been hanging in the balance. And it may be that you can see one quick way to shift something, but you don't really know if that's the right step that you should be taking. You don't know if it sits right with your heart. You don't know if ethically or dharmically it's correct with what, the contents of your heart and indeed who your soul is. You don't know if it's in balance with that. And when we're dealing with something like that, it's good to take a look at that, okay? So a Grand Trine, what exactly is a Grand Trine? That's when you have either 3 planets or 3 sets of planets, because planets do conjunct each other from time to time, forming a triangle with each other. It's 3 angles, 3 trines of 120 degrees. So 3 trines equals a Grand Trine. Happens, maybe 2-3 times a year. Depending on the planets that are involved in it, it tends to be, very powerful. It will be powerful in general, but sometimes it's extra powerful. And dependent upon celestial events that occur in conjunction with it, that also tends to give it a boost. And of course, we have a lunar eclipse that forms part of this Grand Trine energy. Lunar eclipses. What are lunar eclipses about? Well, let's talk about the moon and what the moon is indicative of. The moon reflects the sun. That's the moon's job. It reflects the energy of the sun. You can look at the sun as being our soul. So the moon is our consciousness. And when you have an eclipse, that means that something is hidden from our view in regards to our consciousness. So we've been talking ethics, right? So that comes under closer scrutiny, right? We have a hard time reflecting. We have a hard time looking at those things for a period of time. But really, that just triggers off a process where we're forced to take a deeper look, right? So eclipses are very powerful periods for change. When you have that period in between a lunar eclipse and solar eclipse, and sometimes the solar eclipse comes first, this particular instance, it's the lunar eclipse that comes first. But when you're in that period in between, that's a very powerful time to focus on self-work so that you can grow and so that you can change your life in the appropriate direction, right? So this lunar eclipse happens in Revati. Revati is the very last lunar mansion, or nakshatra, and it marks the very end of the zodiac, right? The nakshatras are something that's very different from the zodiac, but for points of this conversation, we're going to say it marks the very end of the zodiac, okay? So what it relates to is the ending of one cycle, but it's not yet the beginning of another. And it's that in-between period where you can kind of have a sense of where things might be heading, but you feel like you're in a state of limbo. So all in a very tight area of the sky. We've got Uranus, we've got the South Node, and we've got the Moon. That's some very chaotic energy. It feels chaotic, but it's to bring things into perspective for us, right? Okay, so that's the lunar eclipse, but that's also one point of the Grand Trine. Let's talk about the other points of the Grand Trine energy so that we can get a deeper understanding of this, right? And Jupiter over in Leo, expansion of self, expansion of who we are, understanding who we are, beginning to live in that energy. We'll touch on that more towards the end, right? Jupiter is in Ashadha. Ashadha relates to serpent wisdom. It relates to potential, right? So on one level, we're wanting to look at the wisdom that we have learned, right? We're wanting to realize our potential in expanding forward. But whenever you're dealing with serpent energy, serpents can strike in an instant. You never know when they're going to strike. So there is a lot of unknown energy as we're looking at both Uranus and Jupiter in Ashadha in association with this, right? Something unexpected could happen, but that's something that's unexpected that happens. If you put it in perspective, you'll recognize where it's trying to guide you. Just learn from the experience. Right? Let it happen, okay? On one level, you don't have a choice, so you might as well let it happen. Well, we always have a choice. We can either cooperate or not cooperate. That's the choice that we always have, right? So then you also have Mars in the other angle of the triangle, in Sagittarius. Sagittarius, the path ahead, new philosophy, new way of looking at things. Mars is wanting to pioneer new ground in Jyeshta. Jyeshta means the eldest. So again, we're looking at wisdom. But the way I like to define Jyeshta's energy is imagine yourself involved in, as a spiritual warrior, you're involved in a battle, okay? And the battle is getting a little bit confusing. You withdraw from the battlefield, you retreat temporarily in order to gain perspective on what's going on and see it from a different vantage point so that you can go back into the situation and rise above the circumstances that you're dealing with and actually get rid of the difficulty that's there. You overcome, right? So there's a change in the works. Things are not going to be in a state of limbo for long, but you don't want to force a change that's out of balance with who you are. You want to honor your ethics. You want to honor what's right. You also want to, whenever there's another involved, honor their ethics. Weigh that in the balance of your heart. Now, right after this Grand Trine happens, Grand Trines very seldom do all the planets become exact in their angle at the same time, right? And that's the case within this, so all within the course of, a good, I think, week to 2 weeks, this has been forming, right? But the day before, or actually, let me look at my notes here just briefly. The day of the Grand Trine, actually the day of the lunar eclipse, I should say, Mars becomes exact in its trine to Jupiter, right? So one part of it does become exact on that very same day. But it doesn't really matter. What really matters is the fact that that Grand Trine energy is there, and you've got a lunar eclipse that's there. So for all intents and purposes, that is the energy of the Grand Trine. That's the most powerful point of it. Okay? So back to the Grand Trine. It also coincides with a tense aspect, with tense aspects from the Moon to Pluto and Venus, right? And there's a need to be real. There's a need to really be truthful with what you're feeling. Don't hide behind your ego within a specific set of circumstances. Where your ethics are, have no fear of being able to show your hand of where your ethics are, because that's going to alter the situation in a manner that's most helpful to the situation itself. And what I was getting ready to touch on is right after this Grand Trine and this lunar eclipse, you've got Jupiter shifting into a different lunar mansion called Maga. Maga is symbolized by a palanquin, which used to be used to carry the king or royalty of any type on the back of an elephant or either on the arms of other individuals through the town. So on a certain level, it relates to dignity. Being comfortable within, as comfortable as one can be within this incarnation, because life itself and consciousness can have its ups and downs and difficulties, right? But the idea is being comfortable and strong within oneself, right? So when you honor your ethics, when you honor what's right for you, then indeed you're doing that. That is the right way forward. That is what's indicated by this. But there's going to be a test over the next few days, up until about the 8th or the 9th, there's going to be a test. Are you going to honor what's right, or are you going to take the easiest way out? Are you going to say what you think you should say, or are you going to diplomatically and tactfully speak the truth of what you feel or where you think things need to head? Something is going to change rather drastically. That's just naturally going to happen. It's best to cooperate with the changes. What I'm trying to do with this video is to show you how best to cooperate with those changes. Very powerful energy on offer for us. We can do with it what we want to do with it. We can either ignore it and get swept away by the changes, or we can cooperate and become empowered. The second one seems to be the best step, doesn't it? Right? So that's how best to focus your energy. Working with these energies of putting things within perspective. Recognizing that you need to focus on what's right for you and what's right for other parties whenever it involves another individual. Your ethics and somebody else's ethics, rather, right? Do what's right. Walk, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk as well. Be strong, be in your power, and be in your soul. That's how you can best take advantage of this energy in association with the Grand Trine. And over the coming weeks, we'll also talk about the solar eclipse between now and the time the solar eclipse happens. But this is the opening of the eclipse portal. Focus your intent on how you would like your life to begin to shape up in conjunction with what's in here. And I know I keep saying that over and over again, but it's exceptionally important. That's going to do it for your weekly video forecast. I also want to point out that I offer a vast range of astrological services. If you would like to know how this Grand Trine and indeed this eclipse portal is going to affect you personally, we can do an interactive web conference consultation, or even a consultation over Skype if you prefer. That's me and you going one-to-one and talking about your chart and the energies associated with it. I also offer in-depth personalized video reports, which is a half hour of me talking about your chart and pointing out key points in your chart to you. In addition to that, I also do written reports. And if you want to learn how to interpret your own chart, I also offer a interactive class. If you haven't subscribed to my page, please consider doing so. You'll receive regular updates whenever the page is updated. And that's generally once a week with either a video like this one, or a moon video, or a Vedic astrology class video, which I also offer on my YouTube channel. That's going to do it for this week. Until next time, I do hope that you'll take very good care of yourself and do the absolute best you can with what's on offer to you. Thanks.